Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be restoring this 1950s era Lionel beacon. I got this beacon for free at the OVA or train show. Basically, I purchased a lot of stuff, and the person running the stand had a whole bunch of other items I guess they were just looking to get rid of, and they threw this in the box. So anyway, as you can see, it's not in very good shape, but I think with a bit of work, we can really make this thing shine. To begin the restoration of this piece, I started by removing the little Lionel logo, which is just held on by these two tabs. It was pretty easy to remove, and once we got it out, we could begin disassembling the rest of the unit. Once we got that done, it was really just a matter of lifting up all the other tabs to gain access so that we could reshape all the misshapen pieces of metal on this unit. Pulling up some of these tabs was a little bit difficult, but once you got a good grip on them, you could get them up pretty easily. In some cases, it was a bit more tricky to lift up some of the tabs because rust had built up over the years, fusing the tabs right to the other pieces of metal. Once I removed all the tabs, I was able to remove the bottom plate, and once I did that, it was just a matter of getting the top piece off to remove it. The top piece was pretty much held on the same way with tons of small metal tabs, although I was a little bit more fortunate with the top piece since there was not as much rust fusing the tabs to the rest of the structure. With a bit of time and effort, I was eventually able to get the top of the structure off, which revealed the tabs which hold on the light fixture. These tabs were much easier to remove since they were much bulkier than the ones on the rest of the structure, although it still took a bit of effort to get them out as well. After I removed the light fixture, it was time to move on to the next stage of the restoration, which would be reshaping the metal. As you can see, there are multiple different metal pieces, which are all slightly malformed in one way or another, just from years of use. So I got my vise out, just so that we'd have a surface which would be good for reshaping the pieces of metal. And I began with the base, which, as you can see, had quite a bend to it, so I just started hammering away at it and eventually tapped the metal back into place, or at least as well as I could. One of the beams on the tower was significantly warped, so I wound up using a pair of pliers to help twist the metal back into place. And then I followed it up with a piece of wood which I stuck into the tower, that way I could tap the metal back into its original form. Once I was finished working on the tower, I decided to move on to the crow's nest. I began by using a pair of pliers just to help get the metal into a slightly more workable form, and then I followed that up with my hammer and a vise, that way I could shape the metal a little bit more precisely. The metal had been misshapen in many different ways, which meant I had to use tons of different angles and techniques to try to work it back into its original form. I wasn't looking for a state of perfection, just something a little bit more to what it would have been like had it left the factory today. Once I was finished reshaping the metal, I hit up all the pieces with a little bit of paint stripper. I just evenly coated all the pieces as well as I could with the paint stripper and then left them all for 10 minutes just so that the paint stripper would have time to do its job. After letting the paint stripper work its magic, I decided to go at all these pieces with a toothbrush just so I could have something coarse enough to help remove the old paint. And after washing all these pieces off with just a bit of soapy water, I was pretty happy with the results. As well as each of these pieces turned out, they certainly were not without their flaws. The bottom plate in particular had quite a bit of thick rust on it, which I wound up removing with a drill and wire bit. And the other pieces I just went at with a bit of steel wool, and the end result I was pretty happy with. It was at least good enough to put a new coat of paint on all of them. After repainting each piece, I was really happy with the results, and I was really getting excited to see what this whole thing was going to look like when reassembled. As you can see, the paint wound up going on pretty evenly. I began by connecting the tower back onto the base, which wound up going pretty easily. It just needed a little bit of adjustment here and there to get it to be seated correctly, but once I got it on, it snapped into place and I was able to start hammering the little pins back in. After the tower and base were reunited, I decided to finish up the crow's nest by reinstalling the light. This was a little bit tricky just to get it through, but once I got it through, I was able to bend the tabs back out and get it all ready to be reinstalled onto the top of the tower. Just like the bottom of the tower, the crow's nest required a little bit of adjustment to get it on. Once I got it on, I was able to hammer the tabs back into place and get it secured nicely. At this point, the structure was pretty much finished. All we needed to do was reinstall the Lionel plate, as well as put in a light bulb, and it would be ready for use. Well, folks, that's going to be it for today's video. I want to thank you guys for watching.